Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravachakachari Statirasatashi Jagatguru Siddhaswarup Ananda Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravachakachari Statirasatashi His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shikoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganges Mai Ki Jai. Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur's Road of Mission Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga, Gaur Premananda. Namaste. Om Jnanatamarandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshulun Militam Jena Tajmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Tadati Swapadantikam. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual masters have opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto them. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter at his lotus feet? Haribo, namaste, welcome everyone. You made it to the river. So today we'll be reading from the 8th canto of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. I'm going to be reading chapter 17. The Lord agrees to become Aditi's son. So if you missed the last few classes, or just joining us, basically what's happened is in the perpetual war between the demigods and the demons, right now the demons have the upper hand. They nicely worshipped the Brahmins and their spiritual master Sukracharya. Because of this, they became very powerful. Bali Maharaj was given a benediction that made him basically undefeatable. They drove the demigods out of the heavenly planets. The demigods had to go incognito, make themselves invisible. They're just kind of going from place to place. And Aditi, who is the mother of the demigods, is very distressed seeing her sons displaced like this and put in a position of anxiety, and so she approaches her husband, Kashyapa Muni, who is also the father of the demons, and says, Krishna, Vishnu is always favorable to his devotees. How can I please Vishnu so that he will come to the aid of the demigods? And so Kashyapa Muni instructed her in the Paravrata ritualistic ceremony, which lasts for 12 days, in which one pointedly focuses his mind and his attention on Lord Vishnu. And so he's instructed her to do this Payavrata ceremony to try to please Lord Vishnu, to get a benediction for her sons, the demigods. And that's where we're going to pick up. Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, after Aditi was thus advised by her husband Kashyapa Muni, she strictly followed his instructions without laziness, and in this way performed the Payovrata ritualistic ceremony. Purport. For advancement in anything, especially in spiritual life, one must strictly follow the bona fide instructions of the teacher. Aditi did this. She strictly followed the instructions of her husband and guru. As confirmed in the Vedic injunctions, Yasya Devi Parabhaktir Yata Devi Tata Guru. One should have complete faith in the guru, who helps the disciple make progress in spiritual life. As soon as the disciple thinks independently, not caring for the instructions of the spiritual master, he is a failure. Yasya prashadam nagaki katopi. Does that sound familiar, that phrase? That's from the 8 prayers to the spiritual master. Aditi very strictly followed the instructions of her husband and spiritual master, and thus she was successful. With full, undiverted attention, Aditi thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in this way brought under full control her mind and senses, which resembled forceful horses. She concentrated her mind upon the Supreme Lord Vasudeva. Thus, she performed the ritualistic ceremony known as Payovrata. Purport. This is the process of Bhakti Yoga. Anya vilashita sunyam jnana karmari avritam anukalenena krishnanu stilam bhaktir uttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna, favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. One simply has to concentrate upon the lotus feet of Vasudeva, Krishna, Savaimana Krishna Pada Vrindodaya. Then the mind and senses will be controlled, and one can engage himself fully in the devotional service of the Lord. The devotee does not need to practice the Hatha Yoga system to control the mind and senses. His mind and senses are automatically controlled because of unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. Text 4. My dear King, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, dressed in yellow garments and bearing a conch shell, disc, club, and lotus in his 4 hands, then appeared before Aditi. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead became visible to Aditi's eyes, Aditi was so overwhelmed by transcendental bliss that she at once stood up and then fell to the ground like a rod to offer the Lord her respectful obeisances. Aditi stood silently with folded hands, unable to offer prayers to the Lord. Because of transcendental bliss, tears filled her eyes, and the hairs on her body stood on end. Because she could see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face, she felt ecstasy, and her body trembled. O Maharaj Parikshit, the demigoddess Aditi, then began offering her prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead in a faltering voice with great love. She appeared as though drinking through her eyes the Supreme Lord, who is the husband of the goddess of fortune, the enjoyer of all sacrificial ceremonies, and the master and lord of the entire universe. Purport. After observing the Payovrata, Aditi was certain that the Lord had appeared before her as Ramapati, the husband of all good fortune, just to offer her sons all opulences. She had performed the Jagna of Payovrata under the direction of her husband Kashyapa, and therefore she thought of the Lord as Jagnapati. She was completely satisfied to see the Master and Lord of the entire universe come before her to fulfill her desire. Text 8. The goddess of Aditi said, O Master and enjoyer of all sacrificial ceremonies, O infallible and most famous person, whose name, when chanted, spreads all good fortune. O original Supreme Personality of Godhead, Supreme Controller, shelter of all holy places, you are the shelter of all poor, suffering living entities, and you have appeared to diminish their suffering. Please be kind to us and spread our good fortune. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master of those who observe vows and austerities, and it is He who bestows benedictions upon them. He is worshipable for the devotee throughout the devotee's life, for he never breaks his promises. As he says in Bhagavad Gita 9:31, Kunteya pratinachanti na me bhaktya panashyahati. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. The Lord is addressed here as Achyuta, the infallible, because he takes care of his devotees. Anyone inimical to the devotees is certainly vanquished by the mercy of the Lord. The Lord is the source of the Ganges water, and therefore he is addressed here as Tirtha Pada, indicating that all the holy places are at his lotus feet, or that whatever he touches with his foot becomes a holy place. Bhagavad Gita, for example, begins with the words, Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre. Because the Lord was present on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, it became a Dharma Kshetra, a place of pilgrimage. Therefore the Pandavas, who were extremely religious, were assured of victory. Any place where the Supreme Personality of Godhead displays his pastimes, such as Vrindavan or Dwarka, becomes a holy place. The chanting of the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is pleasing to the ear, and it expands good fortune to the audience who hears it chanted. Owing to the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Aditi was fully assured that the troublesome condition created for her by the demons would now be ended. Text 9. My Lord, you are the all-pervading universal form, the fully independent creator, maintainer, and destroyer of this universe. Although you engage your energy in matter, you are always situated in your original form and never fall from that position. For your knowledge is infallible and always suitable to any situation. You are never bewildered by illusion. O my Lord, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila 2:117, it is said, Siddhanta bilaik chitte na kara vilasa, ihi hai ite Krishna lage sadhira manasa. Anyone trying to become fully Krishna conscious must know the Lord's glories as far as possible to understand. Here, Aditi hints at these glories. The universe is nothing but the external potency of the Lord. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9.4. 9.4. Maya tatam idam sarvam. Whatever we see in this universe is but an expansion of the potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as the sunshine and the heat all over the universe are expansions of the sun. When one surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he surpasses the influence of the illusory energy. For the Supreme Lord, being fully wise and being situated in the heart of everyone, especially in the heart of the devotee, gives one intelligence by which one is sure never to fall into illusion. Text 10. O unlimited one, if your lordship is satisfied, one can very easily attain the lifetime. O unlimited one, If your lordship is satisfied, one can very easily obtain a lifetime as long as that of Lord Brahma, a body either in the upper, lower, or middle planetary systems, unlimited material opulence, religion, economic development, and satisfaction of the senses, full transcendental knowledge, and the 8 yogic perfections. What to speak of such petty achievements as conquering one's rivals? Sukadeva Goswami said, O King Parikshit, best of the Bharata dynasty, when the lotus-eyed Lord, the supersoul of all living entities, was thus worshipped by Aditi, he replied as follows. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Mother of the demigods, I have already understood your long-cherished desires for the welfare of your sons, who have been deprived of all opulences and driven from their residence by their enemies. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, being situated in everyone's heart, and especially in the hearts of his devotees, is always ready to help devotees in adversity. Since he knows everything, he knows how things are to be adjusted, and he does the needful to relieve the suffering of his devotee. O Devi, O Goddess, I can understand that you want to regain your sons and to be together with them to worship me, after defeating the enemies in battle and retrieving your abode and opulences. You want to see the wives of the demons lamenting the death of their husbands, when those demons, the enemies of your sons, are killed in battle by the demigods, of whom Indra is the chief. You want your sons to regain their lost reputation and opulence, and live again in their heavenly planet as usual. O Mother of the demigods, in my opinion, almost all the chiefs of the demons are now unconquerable, for they are being protected by Brahmins, whom the Supreme Lord always favors. Thus, the use of power against them now will not be a source of happiness. Purport. When a person is favored by Brahmins and Vaishnavas, no one can defeat him. Even the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not interfere when one is protected by a Brahmin. It is said, Go Brahmanya Hitaya Cha. The Lord's first inclination is to give all benedictions to the cows and Brahmins. Therefore, if Brahmins favor someone, the Lord does not interfere, nor can anyone interfere with the happiness of such a person. So, we have a conundrum. Conundrum? Is that what we're saying? Krishna wants to please his devotee Aditi, but the demons are being protected by the Brahmins, who he is also protecting. It's kind of like the situation. Remember when Lord Balaram was on pilgrimage, when he found that the Battle of Kurukshetra was going to take place in spite of all of his and Krishna's efforts to avoid it, and that they weren't allowed to participate, and being kind of favorable to the Kauravas anyway. Lord Brahma decided to go on pilgrimage, and one of the places he ended up was the forest of Naimisharanya, where the sages were gathering for this giant 1,000-year sacrifice to try to find a way to lessen the effects of Kali Yuga on the conditioned souls. And when he got there, he found Romarhashana Sutta, who had been elected to the post of the chief officiary of the sacrifice, and yet Romarhashana Sutta failed to offer respect when Lord Balaram entered the arena. And Romarhashana Sutta was thinking that, I'm sitting on the Vyasa sign, I'm the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, therefore I don't have to get up and show respect to anybody. And Lord Balaram was saying this is the exact problem with Kali Yuga, is that the Brahmins become puffed up and they lose sight of the actual situation. Here I am, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Brahmins are meant to be showing people how to learn to respect the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet when the Supreme Personality of Godhead enters the sacrificial arena, this puffed up fool thinks he's above offering respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he is a hypocrite. And this is the problem this is the exact cause of so many of the problems of Kali Yuga, is that the corruption of the Brahmin class. So he decides that Romarshana must be killed as an example. So he kills Romarshana Sutta with a piece of kusa grass. But now the Brahmins who had elected him to that post, they don't know what to say. They say, our dear Lord Balaram, I mean, surely it was correct for you to kill him. But at the same time, we had given him the benediction of a long life and, full control of his faculties and this and that. And now all of a sudden he's dead. And now you've made liars out of us, basically, right? You've defeated our benedictions, and now we don't know what to do here. You've kind of, we don't know. He says, well, if you like, I can bring him back to life and we'll just continue on. And they said, no, we don't. It was your will that he be killed, so we don't want to counteract your will. But at the same time, we don't know how to resolve the situation. So they said, we ask you to come up with a solution. So this is the nature of the living entity, is that we are the dominated parts and parcels of Krishna. Even the pure devotees of Krishna, even though on one hand they're non-different from Krishna, they're always at the same time remain subservient to the Lord. And they look for opportunities to surrender to the Lord and take shelter of his instruction. So these Brahmins at Naimisharanya, they thought, oh, here's a wonderful opportunity to let Balaram solve our dilemma. And so they asked Balaram, what should we do? And so Balaram says, well, the son is considered the representative of the father, so we can just transfer all of the benedictions to his son, Romaharshana Sutta's son, to Sutta Goswami, and he can take over, and therefore all of your benedictions will remain intact, and the ceremony can go on as planned. And everyone thought this was a very nice arrangement. And it gave him another chance to glorify Lord Balaram. And so here we have a similar situation where Aditi is pleased, Lord Vishnu, and she's there to offer her all benedictions and to grant her desires, which is that the demons become defeated. But at the same time, the Brahmins are the ones who have made the demons unconquerable. And so he's got this problem of how do we resolve this? So text 17, he offers the solution. Yet because I have been satisfied by the activities of your vow, O goddess Aditi, I must find some means to favor you, for worship of me never goes in vain, but certainly gives the desired result according to what one deserves. You have prayed to me and properly worshipped me by performing the great Payovrata ceremony for the sake of protecting your sons. Because of Kashyapa Muni's austerities, I shall agree to become your son and thus protect your other sons. Always thinking of me as being situated within the body of your husband Kashyapa, go worship your husband who has been purified by his austerity. O lady, even if someone inquires, You should not disclose this fact to anyone. That which is very confidential is successful if kept secret. Sukadeva Goswami said, after speaking in this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead disappeared from that very spot. Aditi, having received the extremely valuable benediction that the Lord would appear as her son, considered herself very successful, and with great devotion she approached her husband. Being situated in a meditational trance, Kashyapa Muni, whose vision is never mistaken, could see that a plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead had entered within him. O King, as the wind promotes friction between two pieces of wood and thus gives rise to fire, Kashyapa Muni, whose transcendental position was fully absorbed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transferred his potency into the womb of Aditi. Purport. A forest fire begins when two pieces of wood rub against one another, being agitated by the wind. Actually, however, fire belongs neither to the wood nor to the wind. It is always different from both. Similarly, here it is to be understood that the union of Kashyapa Muni and Aditi was not like the sexual intercourse of ordinary human beings. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has nothing to do with the human secretions of sexual intercourse. He is always completely aloof from such material combinations. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 9:29, Samoham sarva bhuteshu, I am equal to all living entities. Nonetheless, to protect the devotees and kill the demons, who were a disturbing element, the Lord entered the womb of Aditi. Therefore, this is a transcendental pastime of the Lord. This should not be misunderstood. One should not think that the Lord became the son of Aditi in the way of an ordinary child is born because of sexual intercourse between a man and a woman. Here it may also be appropriate to explain, in these days of controversy, the origin of life. The life force of the living entity, the soul, is different from the ovum and semen of the human being. Although the conditioned soul has nothing to do with the reproductive cells of a man and woman, he is placed into the proper situation because of his work, karmana daiva nutrena. Life is not, however, a product of two secretions, but is independent of all material elements. As fully described in Bhagavad Gita, the living entity is not subject to any material reactions. He can neither be burnt by fire, cut by sharp weapons, moistened by water, nor dried by the air. He is completely different from the physical elements. But by a superior arrangement, he is put into these material elements. He is always aloof from material contact. Asango hi ayam purusha. But because he is placed in a material condition, he suffers the reactions of the material modes of nature. Parusha praktistihi bhunkte pariktim gunam karanam gunasargo shwa sarashad yogi yamashu. The living entity in material nature thus follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus, he meets with good and evil amongst various species. Bhagavad Gita 13:22. Although the living entity is aloof from the material elements, he is put into material conditions, and thus he must suffer the reactions of material activities. So as always, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada gives a very nice explanation. Because we are conditioned by the modes of material nature, we have the tendency to think in terms of material conditions. We have the tendency to think in terms of life and death and material bodies and material consequences and things like that. We have the tendency to forget that I am not the body, that I have nothing to do with material energy. Especially when we see that when the body becomes injured and we are forced to leave this body and take on our next body according to either our karma or the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead if we get out of the cycle of birth and death. We have this tendency to think, oh, because the body has been injured, therefore I cannot stay here, right? Material nature has forced me out. But this is not actually the case. You've not been forced out of the body by the fact that the body is no longer functional and sustainable. We have the wonderful example of Bhishma, who on the Battle of Kurukshetra, when he was attacked by Arjuna in such a ferocious attack that he had so many arrows piercing his body that when he fell from his chariot, not a single part of his body touched the ground. There were arrows in his arms, there were arrows through his neck, there are arrows through his legs, through his feet. And these arrows went completely through the body and came out the other side. And when he fell off the chariot, it was like suspended above the ground on this bed of arrows. And yet, even though he had so many arrows piercing all the way through his body, he did not leave the body. Because it was an inauspicious time, he said. He wanted to wait for a more auspicious time to leave his body. But the real reason that he stayed was because he needed to instruct Maharaj Yudhisthira to accept the throne. As Maharaj Yudhisthira became so despondent after the battlefield of Kurukshetra, when he saw that how many people had died and how many widows had been formed and how many orphans had been made, and so much grief and suffering simply so that he could be enthroned on the as the king. He became overwhelmed. Just as Arjuna was before the battle, Yudhisthira became so distressed afterwards that he could find no way to drive away the grief, just as Arjuna could. And even when Krishna tried to console him and tried to instruct him, he couldn't hear. He couldn't even hear that. And this was another transcendental pastime of Krishna. Krishna wanted to glorify his great devotee Bhishma. So he wanted Bhishma to be able to do something that even he couldn't do, which was convince Maharaj Yudhisthira to accept the throne after the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So Bhishma lay on the battlefield. What was it? I forget how many days it was, 12 or 14 days. And meanwhile, his death had been predicted. And so all these great saintly persons came to Kurukshetra to hear Bhishma's last words. And so this great assembly of all these great saintly persons assembled around Lord Bhishma, Bhishma Maharaj, to hear him speak. And they got to hear him speak to Yudhisthira about the duties of the king and the duties of the Kshatriyas in general, and how he was obligated to take the throne and as his duty not out of some kind of reward, but he was doing it out of his duty, and it was his service to Krishna, his service to God, to accept that position. And so it was a clear example that staying in the body was not dependent on the material condition of the body. And then we have the other side of the spectrum, right? The other side of the card, the coin, as it said. Who are we thinking of?
Hiranyakashipu.
Exactly, Hiranyakashipu. Very demoniac personality, right? Bhishma was the most saintly person, right? He was a pure devotee of Krishna. He was the most pious and glorious person. Then you have Hiranyakashipu, who was this very demoniac, atheistic personality. And he was determined to get a situation where he could defeat Vishnu and defeat Krishna. And so he performed all these austerities. And in the course of performing his austerities, he was standing on his tiptoes for 100 celestial years with his hands above his head. And he was so powerful that fire was emanating out of the top of his head. And he stood there for so long that the ants and termites built this nest around him and ate all of the flesh, not only all the flesh off his bones, but ate all of the marrow out of the inside of his bones. And yet he was still able to circulate his life air through the middle of the bones, through Krishna's mercy, of course, right? Right? He's actually Jai of Jai and Vijay. He just left the spiritual world to give Krishna some demons to fight and follow up, so he's actually, this is going on by Krishna's arrangement, Krishna's desire, of course. But two very wonderful examples of how the spirit soul is completely independent of the material body. We do not need the material body to exist. We exist independent of the material body. Anything that appears to be alive, it is strictly due to this presence of the spirit soul that gives it's basically an illusion of life. There is no material life. There's only the symptoms of the soul that makes life appear to be there. It's just dead matter. All material energy is dead matter. It's only due to the influence of the spirit soul that it appears the illusion of life is there. Text 24. When Lord Brahma understood that the Supreme Personality of Godhead was now within the womb of Aditi, he began to offer prayers to the Lord by reciting transcendental names. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead exists everywhere. Andantarastya paramo charanantarastam. Therefore, when one chants his transcendental names, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is automatically pleased by such Sankirtan. It is not that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is absent. He is present there. And when a devotee utters the transcendental name, it is not a material sound. Therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is naturally pleased. A devotee knows that the Lord is present everywhere and that one can please him simply by chanting his holy name. Lord Brahma said, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, all glory is unto you, who are glorified by all, and whose activities are all uncommon. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, O Lord the Transcendentalist, controller of the three modes of nature. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you again and again. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, the all-pervading Lord Vishnu, who have entered the cores of the hearts of all living entities. All the three worlds reside within your navel, yet you are above the three worlds. Formerly, you appeared as the son of Prishni. To you, the Supreme Creator, who are understood only through Vedic knowledge, I offer my respectful obeisances. O my Lord, you are the beginning, the manifestation, and the ultimate dissolution of the three worlds, and you are celebrated in the Vedas as the reservoir of unlimited potencies, the Supreme Person. O my Lord, as waves attract branches and leaves that have fallen into deep water, you, the Supreme Eternal Time Factor, attract everything in this universe. Report. The time factor is sometimes described as Kala Stotra, waves of time. Everything in this material world is within the time factor and is being carried away by waves of attraction, which represent the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's a nice analogy. The time factor is sometimes called, described as Kala Stotra, waves of time. Living in Hawaii, we tend to take waves for granted. You see waves all the time, but they're actually pretty far out. They're mentioned several places in the Vedas because they're unlimited, practically speaking. Right? There's always another one that seems to have no end, right? There seems to be an unlimited source of the waves. They're just always coming in one after another. You practically never see the ocean completely calm. And so these analogy of comparing the time to waves is helpful in appreciating that we have this tendency to get caught up in the moment. We get lost in the short-sighted vision that something is very important and urgent because it is timely. Prahlad Maharaj when he was trying to enlighten his classmates, was trying to get them to take advantage of their youth by encouraging them to start their spiritual life when they were only 5 years old. And they weren't going for it. They were saying, Prahlad, come on, man, we're just kids. This is our time to play. It's bad enough that we're in school and we have to spend so much time studying. When the teachers aren't here, let's play. Let's take advantage of this opportunity to have some fun, you know? Kids just want to play. And Prahlad says, no, it doesn't work that way. He says it's the nature of time that right now you're kids and you're thinking, oh, now I must enjoy playing. Because how long will I get to enjoy playing? But what happens is like when that wave rolls into the ocean, the next wave comes in, and now you're in your youth, and now you're thinking, oh, now I must get married. Now I must have my family. Now I must have to pay attention to making money and supporting my family and getting an education. And that wave of time takes precedence and takes over your consciousness. And there's no time to seek out your spiritual life. And then what comes after that? now my children have grown, and now, I'll take to my spiritual life after my children are grown. But no, now there's the grandchildren. Now I've got to spend time with the grandchildren. And my kids are having some problems. They need some direction, this and that, and da-da-da-da, I need some help. And so it's just one thing after another, just like it's one wave after another. This time comes in these different waves, and every one of them seems to be important and urgent at the time. And we don't have the big picture. We lose sight of the fact that these are just little slices of time. And in reality, we are beyond time. We are the eternal parts and parcels of Krishna. The material mind finds it impossible to really fully conceive of eternality. But this is our nature. We are eternal. Just like Aditi in this situation, she's so wound up by the temporary misfortune of her sons, the demigods, who aren't really demigods anyway, right? They're also parts and parcels of Krishna, just temporarily within this material world, trying somehow or another to become purified to the point where they can get off this cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. Right now, they're at the top of the heap, right? But if they're not careful, if they don't watch their P's and Q's, they can fall back down to a very low birth and have to climb all the way back up to the demigod status again. But Aditi's thinking, oh, these are my sons. It is very important that they enjoy life to the fullest. I can't stand to see them in this condition where they're not enjoying the opulences of the heavenly planets. And they've been, embarrassed by these demons. And I can't wait to see the wives of these demons lamenting the death of their husbands. So even though Aditi is just pleased the Supreme Personality of Godhead by this Payavrata ceremony, she focused her mind on Krishna for this 12-day span to achieve this goal. It's still not on the level of actual pure devotional service. It's still motivated by material desires. Now, just as these we have to be very careful that in our tendency to be arrogant and critical of others, that we don't find fault with devotees like Aditi or Kashyapa Muni or the demigods. After all, Krishna has his reasons for everything he does. Krishna has his pastimes, and now he's set this whole situation up so that he can appear as Lord Vamanadev and give Bali Maharaj the chance to surrender everything to him, to show that even a demon can fully surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And even though apparently losing everything, he's actually gaining everything. So we have to be very careful in our minds while we're in this conditioned state, when we have this tendency to try to place ourselves above others and be critical of others and whatever else. We should appreciate Aditi's wonderful position to be granted the role of the mother of an incarnation of Krishna and being part of this wonderful pastime of Krishna as appearing as Vamanadev, so that Bali Maharaj gets a chance to surrender to Text 28.
Doesn't say the told yet.
O my Lord, you are the original generator of all living entities, stationary or moving, and you are also the generator of the Prajapatis. O my Lord, as a boat is the only hope for a person drowning in the water, you are the only shelter for the demigods, who are now bereft of their heavenly position. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 8th canto, 17th chapter of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam entitled, The Supreme Lord Agrees to Become Aditi's Son. Next week, chapter 18, Lord Vamanadev, the dwarf incarnation.
Haribo.
Haribo. Anyone have any comments they want to offer? Anything this reminded you of? Or? Kayla, you're inside again. The Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is such a wonderful transcendental literature. And we see here where Lord Brahma is in the habit of relating to the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Lord Vishnu, who appears, with 4 forms, carrying the disc, the club, the lotus, the conch shell. A very formal position, and position of authority and power. Controller of the whole universe, and making all these amazing arrangements for this and that. And it's no wonder that he was struggling when he saw Krishna in Vrindavan in the role of a simple cowherd boy. Going, wait a minute. This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? This doesn't look like the Vishnu I'm used to dealing with.
It's like he gets so caught up in his role of being the creator of the universe that he forgets where Vishnu comes from or something.
Yeah. That's, it reminds me, I often go back to that walk I was on with Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada when his disciple was asking him, are any of the demigods pure devotees? And he was saying no. He says, what about Lord Brahma? Lord Brahma's not a pure devotee. And he says, even Lord Brahma desires his post. That's how strong the desires are of this material world, that even someone as elevated as Lord Brahma can become captivated by this, subtle material desires, the desire to be the controller, the desire to be the creator, the desire to be the, whatever it is. And just kind of helps us have some insight into the actual glories of the pure devotee of Krishna, That the pure devotee of Krishna, the Pravajakacharya, is on a higher platform than the creator of the universe. He has no desires to be fulfilled. His only desire is to be pleasing to Krishna in whatever way he can. Srila Prabhupada spoke on Lord Chaitanya's appearance day. He was reminding us that this is Lord Chaitanya's instruction to all of us. And we've all been tasked with the job of becoming Guru. And he went on to explain what that really entails. You know, Balaki had written him a letter asking if he could represent him. And he says, you have to understand, what does it mean to be representing the Acharya? He said, it's not a matter of getting permission. It's a state of consciousness. It's understanding that everything the devotee does is an act of love. Everything the Acharya does is an act of love. He's acting out of love for Krishna. He's acting out of love for Krishna's parts and parcels. His only motivation is love. And therefore, if you were going to represent the spiritual master, if you're going to represent the Acharya, then you must be acting out of unconditional love. This is not, I think, to be taken lightly. But it is what is expected. This is Lord Chaitanya's command to each and every one of us. And therefore, it's being passed on and by the Acharyas. And in one nice lecture, well, they're all nice, of course, but one lecture Srila Prabhupada gave, he was talking about this. It must have been on Vyas Puja, I don't remember exactly, but someone had been offering him some glorifications, you know. Going on and on about how wonderful he was and this and that. And he explained that this is not the desire of the devotees to be glorified. It's not like the spiritual master is speaking and doing this and that so that he can be glorified. It's not like we should be all chanting, rah, rah, like cheerleaders, right? In a football game or something. Oh, you're so great, you're so wonderful, da, da. No, this is not the desire of the devotee. The desire of the devotee is that each and every one of us become pure lovers of Krishna. And that we come to the point of accepting Krishna's unconditional love for us, and we act on that. We take up the command of Lord Chaitanya, help deliver the fallen souls of this world. It's not enough to be standing on the sidelines cheering the spiritual master on, rah, rah, rah. No, we must actually accept and apply the instructions that are being given to us. It actually has to become our life. It actually has to become our heart. And if you're like me, you have the tendency to think, oh, this is not possible. Right? Not me. There's no way I could ever rise above all my petty faults and jealousies and thises and that's and my desires for profit, adoration, and distinction. But to think in those terms is to think this is an offense to the holy name of Krishna. As we just read, Lord Brahma is stating, Krishna's names are all powerful. They contain all his potencies. They're all purifying. Krishna comes to invite us back to that world of loving exchanges. He doesn't invite us to mock us. He invites us because it's our natural, constitutional place to be. So thinking that I can never become a pure devotee of Krishna. No, you can. And you will. You've been given the ticket back home. Speaking to Acharya Das once. He's explaining it's like that. You come in contact with a bona fide spiritual master. You accept him as your spiritual master. You offer him your life. And you're given a one-way ticket back home to Krishna Loka. But it's up to you to fill in the date of when you're going to do it. Because free will must be there. Right? Anyone have anything else? Will we chant for a minute?
Probably need to go out anyway, which is why I was like, I should probably just.
I was just thinking, isn't Aditi, is she the same as Krishna and Sutapa? You know, Krishna and Sutapa, there's a lecture where I think he's reading, is it from Nectar of Devotion or something? And it talks about how Vasudeva and Devaki were actually Prishni and Sutapa, who were Prajapati.
It's from the Krishna book, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's in, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Kashyapa and Aditi are also the same people.
I'm not so sure about that.
Okay.
But they were Prajapatis. And Swayambhuva Manu is the father of Aditi. No, Daksha is the father of Aditi, but he's a Prajapati. I don't know. I lose track of who, the whole family thing.
It is hard.
But it's stated in the Krishna book that Prishni and Sutapa were perpetually going to be the mother and father of Krishna. So it's possible. I've never read anywhere where that connection was made.
Well, I looked it up and I found something that said it, but I don't know if it's a reliable source. Is from Wikipedia, but
Your
yeah,
sunspot
could be correct.
is not in the sun.
Not necessarily, but
No.
yeah.
This could be.
Yeah. Okay.
Haribo.
Hi, Bob.
I'd just like to take this moment and say thank you for doing these classes, and thank you, Aaron, for all your guys' hard work. And because now we're talking about Lord Chaitanya's appearance day, and Srila Prabhupada said we should thank people that do things like this. Haribo. So Haribo. And then also please accept my obeisances, everybody here on this class, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Kayla. Yeah, he did make that point. It's important that we show respect to the devotees of Krishna, even if they're in our estimation, they're not so advanced. All right, so we'll chant for a bit. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to read Bhagavatam to us, because I get to hear it too. Namo Sira Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namaste Gora Karuna Swapaya Radha Krishna Pristayate Saraswati Deva Gauravani Acharya Deva Sesha Sunyavadi Pastatya Ishatara Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasade Sadeko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasade Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Rama 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 Hare Haribo.
Haribo.